Hello, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about our sponsor, Anchor, hopefully at a louder volume this week. First of all, it's free and it has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. I found it really easy to move the segments around in the editing process, and you can put the ads in wherever you want too, which is really helpful. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. This has been super helpful with the success of my first episode, having it on all of these platforms for you guys to listen to. And Anchor does that for you, which makes it super easy. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership, which is perfect for people like me who are just starting a brand new podcast. So it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you've been thinking about a podcast you want to start, this is me encouraging you to do it. All you got to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Navigating Adulthood and IDD. I'm super excited today to have Lauren Burgess and Robby Chaney, both representing Dirt Coffee today, which is a nonprofit coffee bar in Littleton, Colorado. So to start, would you both mind giving like a short introduction?
Sure. Thanks so much for having us. My name is Lauren Burgess, and I am the founder and CEO of Dirt Coffee Bar. Like you had mentioned, we are located in downtown Littleton. We were founded in 2013, started off as a small little coffee truck touring around Denver metro area, and a couple years ago, finally were able to open the doors of our brick and mortar.
My name is Robby Chaney, and I'm the back of the house manager. I've been with Dirt since it first started out as a coffee truck, and I've been working in the shop since it first opened back in 2018, and I've been working here ever since.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to dive into all things about Dirt today and kind of the employment opportunities it offers. So Lauren, you kind of talked about it a little bit with how Dirt got started in a coffee truck. So kind of, I guess to expand upon that, why did you start Dirt and kind of what was that journey like?
Sure. So in graduate school, I was volunteering and working and interning for as many organizations in the field of basically autism and education or intervention or policy and advocacy that I could to really figure out where my passions were, where I felt like I can make the most impact. And it was during that I came to the idea of Garden, which is the first business I started in 2010. And Garden is an organization that works with children, adolescents, and adults with neurodiversity, so autism and all other intellectual or developmental disabilities. And all of our services are community-based. So the idea there is that we're teaching real-world skills in real-world settings. And most of the places I had worked or I had seen or studied previously were doing really great things, but more in isolation, either at home or in the classroom or at the back of a school, in a gym, and almost isolated and segregated and not really getting the individuals that I was seeing out in their community and giving them exposure to their community, but also giving exposure of our community to all different types of people. So it was during that work that then I was meeting individuals like Robby who were coming to Garden, graduating from high school or college and really wanting to start their career, but not really knowing what was out there for them. And I worked with Robby pretty closely and a few other young adults, and we were filling out applications and going on interviews, and there were job offers for sure, but none of them were the jobs that I felt that this community deserved, and that the people who I was working with were communicating that they wanted. So I teamed up with a therapist who was working for me at Garden at the time, Emily Wallace, and her and I just started moving full force forward with the idea of DIRT. I had written the business plan a few years prior to that, and it was kind of just laying dormant. And then it was kind of the work with Robby and a few others that inspired this, and then my ability and Emily's passion of really urging me to get this started. So we launched a crowdfunding campaign and raised enough money to allow us to purchase and renovate a truck.
That is so cool. And you guys still have the truck, right?
Yeah, we sure do.
I saw that online. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's such a cool idea, both having like the storefront and the truck like out in the community too.
Yeah, it was having a mobile coffee truck was never part of the original plan, but with the amount of funds that we had raised, we had enough to do something, but not exactly what we wanted. And I'm so glad, everything ends up working out in hindsight, but being able to have the truck allowed us to be mobile and go out into the community for a few years before we were able to actually open up a shop. But by the time we opened up a shop, everybody in our community knew about us. And so we were able to kind of move full force once our doors opened.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, and you've been touching on it. What kind of employment opportunities do you provide at DIRT?
Yeah, so our mission is served in a multitude of ways and purposes. So 30% of our staff, of our permanent staff, is neurodiverse. We're one of the few nonprofit food and beverage establishments that's also recognized and considered by the state of Colorado and by the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation to be considered, and I'm using air quotes now, integrated and competitive. So that means that our shop looks like what the world looks like. So not everybody has a disability and not everybody is neurotypical. 30% of our world has a disability. So 30% of our workforce at DIRT identifies as being disabled. And then on top of that, we have an internship program, and that program is specifically for young adults with disabilities who have little to no job experience. And so that program takes between 10 and 15 individuals with autism or another neurodiversity, and they earn typically what is their first paycheck for anywhere from 3 to 12 months, and then work with us and a job coach one-on-one to kind of gain those entry-level job skills and be able to put something on their resume, and they leave our program graduating with a certificate and then a letter of recommendation and the opportunity to move on to the next step in their employment journey with having that experience under their belt.
That's awesome, because that could be a huge barrier for everyone, really, is like when you're trying to get a job. So many jobs want that like entry level experience, and so many jobs it's like, well, how do I get that entry level experience if I can't get the jobs? So to provide that so that individuals can build their career to what they want it to be is really awesome.
That's exactly what we hope it to be too. DIRT is named DIRT for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons is that we hope to be kind of that foundation and that stepping stone and planting those seeds for so many individuals who are ready to move on and start earning a real paycheck in the real world.
I love that. Oh, I love that background on the name. That's so cool. So I'm going to switch to Robby a little bit here, since we're talking about the kinds of jobs that DIRT provides. And you were, in your introduction, you said how long you've been there. And I was reading your bio on the website, and I thought it's so cool that you started as an intern and have worked up as a mentor, and now you're a manager. So would you mind expanding on kind of your journey through that employment and what your job is now?
My background story?
Yeah.
So it all started when I was starting on job coaching, and I've went a few places with another organization, and I never got anywhere. And then I came across Garden, and that's when I met Lauren. That was about 7 years ago now. And then she started job training me on how to apply for a job, and that's what led me to get a seasonal job at FedEx, and I worked there for up until Christmas. And then we resumed the job training stuff. And then Lauren approached me with the truck and asked me if I were interested. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go for it. Then I became one of the first interns to work the truck on several events. And then when I was in Emily Griffith Technical College in the video production program, I produced some videos for the organization itself. And then after I graduated, Lauren approached me to produce a fundraiser video for Dirt and the other organizations she's a part of. And that was my first freelance job. And I've been doing some other freelance videos ever since. And then when it came time for the shop to open, Lauren asked me if I were interested in being one of the managers of the shop. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go for it. And that's when I became back of the house manager. And I was thrilled to finally get a job where I'm in a safe environment away from all the rude people all around the other world. And I worked really hard, and all that hard work earned me an Employee of the Year award. And that was the best time of my life. And ever since that, I've worked really hard, and I've started to teach others how to keep working hard, and maybe one day they can earn an award or earn enough money to live independently and so on.
That's awesome. First of all, congratulations. That's amazing. Employee of the Year. I love it. That's so awesome. And it sounds like you found a real good kind of niche with Dirt Coffee. What kind of strengths do you think you bring to the job? And it sounds like you've been able to build a lot of strengths with Dirt as well too.
What strengths do I bring to work? I learned from a few minor mistakes, and I learned it quickly. I like to keep myself detained at all times, making sure everything's where it needs to be neatly. And I also remind some of my other coworkers the same things. And I think it's just basically trying to be patient with customers who are in a bit of a rush or such, and they're always patient with me, even when I tell them to. And as long as I keep myself focused, I'm good to go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Robby, what's your favorite thing about working at Dirt?
My favorite thing about working at Dirt is I think it's greeting nicer people and being able to greet others who share a similar disability. And I do my best to be more polite to them and offer them new drinks in case they didn't get the ones they wanted, and always be there whenever they need help with whatever they need.
Oh, that's awesome. I need to get out to Dirt sometime. The pandemic's unfortunately been kind of holding me back, but like it's on my radar. I have to get there. It sounds like such a great environment that you guys have, not only for your employees but for your customers too. And with that, I wanted to ask, what makes Dirt different, kind of business operation wise? How do you meet the needs of the employees? How do you kind of integrate the neurodiverse employees and the neurotypical ones?
Yeah, I think Robby's story is a great example, and you can probably gather that he is really humble and doesn't brag about all of the things that he brings to the table. And so, for example, Robby sharing that, you know, he was working somewhere else and that we were finally ready to open up our doors and offered him the management position. And back when we were just starting, we knew that we needed baristas and we knew that we needed managers, and we knew who we wanted those managers to be and who those baristas to be. But we didn't know much more than that. Running an actual brick and mortar versus a mobile coffee truck is night and day difference. So it was actually Robby who really created and helped us to create the back of house manager position, because that position did not create before or did not exist before Robby. And that was created because we saw Robby was super meticulous when it came to anything food prep related and inventory related. We would learn we would add a brand new panini to our menu, and the vendor would teach us how to make sure to cook it correctly and serve it correctly and make sure that it's all up to par. And Robby was the one that really helped us hone in on that and say, and catch us too, and say, oh, actually I found that this is a better way to do that, and let's make sure we're all doing it the same way, and that consistency is really important. And then that's when we kind of realized, holy moly, Robby is bringing such a unique strength to the team and making sure that everything we do is super consistent and really high quality. And so we gave him the title of back of house manager with his help to create it because of those specific strengths that he brings and he alone brings, and is, every week at our, or every other week at our management meetings, he's the one that's giving us updates about where our inventory is at and any new processes with regards to how we're prepping the foods and preparing the food. So I think that's important because all of our employees bring a unique skill or strength to the table. And something that I think DIRT has been really great at is recognizing and being able to suss out what those unique strengths are and what each individual brings to the table, and then cultivating a position around that. There's this idea out in the world that employers just don't know how to employ people with disabilities, and it's, how do we manage that, or how do we put these modifications in place? But it's really, it's not much different than hiring anybody else. And honestly, if Robby wasn't who he was, we probably wouldn't have a back of the house manager and would still be kind of a duck underwater, where it's like calm and cool up above, but then the kicking feet down below water, and still trying to figure out what these systems and processes look like.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. And like the idea of like building around the strengths and making those positions around the strengths of individuals. That's so cool. And Robby, that's awesome. Employee of the year for sure. Like you had that whole position built, and it's so crucial for the operations at DIRT, built on your strengths. So that's so cool. And you were kind of touching on it, Lauren. So how could other businesses like try to implement things to be more inclusive? Because there's that kind of idea of like, oh no, like it's a hassle or something. I don't know. Like, for as much as people talk about like inclusivity, you look at the community of like jobs and it doesn't reflect in the job market still. So how, like if somebody wanted to hire people and be inclusive, what could they implement?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that you're right. So many people just don't know where to start. And there's definitely not an easy answer, but the answer that I like to give most employers who are interested in this is start by looking at the positions that you currently have at your shop or at your place of business, and thinking about where's the flexibility within those positions. A lot of times when I get hired on as a consultant to go into a business and think about, how could this industry or this business or this company start employing people with disabilities, I look at all of their positions and I think like, okay, I see this person is in charge of XYZ, but they're actually really good at X and Y. Let's think about getting Z off their plate, because I know somebody who would be really good at Z, and be able to like save resources and streamline everything and be a lot more efficient by adding in a person to take something off of somebody's plate and adding it to another person's plate. I also think a really good place to start too is just in your ad or in the application. I mean, using more plain language just shows that your organization or your company is open to hiring all different types of people, and not just people with disabilities, but maybe people who English is not their first language. And so a lot of times, and I've done this too, is when I'm posting an ad on Indeed or Craigslist, I'm using a lot of lingo from the industry or the field. Even things like neurodiversities is considered like field lingo when it could just be stated more plainly, like people with disabilities. And then also having a statement saying that you're prioritizing people with disabilities or you're prioritizing BIPOC on your application so that you start being able to get those people in the door. A lot of times, so many people don't even have the chance to enter the door to even entertain that conversation or entertain that option.
Yeah. Oh, what a good point. I've never thought about like ads and like just that kind of even accessibility level of it. Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway that somebody could do like today to like implement that are your ads accessible? Are your like, yeah, so that's awesome. So good. And I mean, we've been talking about it. I hear it in both your words and of describing dirt, describing the journeys of making dirt. But what kind of community do you hope to create with dirt, or have created with dirt?
So I love that question about dirt's community, because it's definitely, my perception or perspective on that has definitely changed. Thinking about opening the doors to dirt, I was most of my focus was on the people who we wanted to provide opportunities for versus the general community at large. And we knew that the general community was going to be impacted by our shop and by our mission. And that's one of the reasons why I chose coffee in particular, is because so many people go to a coffee shop, multiple days a week. So there's lots of opportunity for engagement. But really, I think the biggest impact that dirt has been able to make in the community is just giving everyday people, again, I'm using air quotes because I know people are listening to this, but everyday people the opportunity to have everyday interactions with people who are not like themselves. I feel like there's so much misinformation out there, and so many people only see what might be a very stereotypical person with autism on a TV show or in a movie, when really it's called a spectrum for a reason, and there's so many different types of people within that spectrum. And I think what has been so great is that our customers who came just because we're their neighborhood coffee shop without really understanding what our mission is getting that exposure and being able to develop relationships and get to know Robby and get to know Daniel and get to know our whole shop and be able to see them alongside neurotypical people. So it's been really great. The pandemic has been super difficult, but the fact that we're still able to keep our doors open just kind of tells me how much the community has taken hold of us and finds value in us and what we're doing and finds value in our employees.
That's awesome. Robby, did you want to answer that question too?
I would say a friendly community. Yeah, we have loads of customers, loads of regulars who come in. They're very friendly to us, and we know what they. It's like every time they come in, we know what they want, and I'm usually like, "Would you like your usual today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," and we give it to them. And I feel like there will be one day where we'll just be extremely nice to them and just give it to them for free, and they won't have to pay us because they come here too much, but they insist on paying us, and that's what makes us friendly.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you both touched on it. Coffee is so perfect because it's different than like if you had like like a clothing store. It's not that same where it's like having your usual drink, and like building those connections that way. It's so easy with coffee. To be like, oh, hey, you're in here again, getting your drink for the day, and can be like that really like social environment can build so easily with coffee.
Absolutely. It's super relational.
Definitely. All right. And you started talking about it, Lauren. So how have you guys pivoted this year with the pandemic?
Yeah. So we started 2020 with, the idea that we were going to open up shop number 2 somewhere in Colorado. And again, everything happens for a reason, and I'm really glad that we hadn't found that perfect location yet. We were so close to signing a lease for a place in downtown Denver, and luckily we decided against that, I think, in early March, and then the pandemic hit. And we tried really hard to keep our doors open, but we did end up having to close for, I think, a full month there, while still doing our best to keep everybody on payroll to the best of our capabilities. We were lucky enough to get some of those PPP funds to keep people on payroll even during the times that they weren't at our shop. And then we finally reopened on May 5th, which happened to be our 2-year anniversary, which was definitely bittersweet to say the least. But luckily we have been slowly getting back to what a normal sales day looks like. We did have a couple of days last week where we either met or exceeded the sales that we were making last year, which was really great to see that people are still coming out and showing up. We've, for the first time, are on all the delivery apps, which I was always really against doing before, just because we care so much about the quality of our product. And so if you have a hot coffee that is being made and then put into your hands in a second, the quality is a lot different than a hot coffee that's being made and then delivered to your door 20 minutes later. So we've had to tweak some of that a little bit. Robby has also been super helpful with that too, but that's helped us. And now we're really focused on what can we do to continue to expand our outreach and our impact, but do it in a way that is not only safe, but also is more accessible and more inclusive. The Black Lives Matter movement has really inspired us and has helped us take a closer look at all of the barriers that even the people who have graduated from our internship program or who are employed by DIRT, still, all the barriers that still exist. It's one thing to be, white and living in Littleton and be disabled, but then add being Black and being disabled on top of that. And so now we're asking those questions like, how do we make our mission more accessible and more equitable for every single person with a disability?
That's awesome. I think that's a good point. And I think sometimes the overlap people don't think about,
Absolutely. Yeah, this year has definitely been awakening in more ways than one, but to think that, we were kind of doing the right type of work by just serving people with disabilities or just being focused on people with disabilities, but then completely neglecting to look at all the intersections that exist within the disability community. So yeah, I'm glad that it finally happened and that our eyes are being opened, and it's allowing us to create more opportunities in terms of partnerships, and we're looking at maybe launching a virtual program to be able to get out into the communities that don't have that easy access to us like they do now.
That's awesome. Awesome. We'll have to keep an eye out for that for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Robby, how has the pandemic affected your job?
How has it affected my job? Well, when the virus first broke out in China, I thought, well, when I was watching the news, I hoped that it wouldn't become a worldwide thing, like it would be like a zombie pandemic that would destroy the planet. But then when it started getting worse and they decided to close the shop, I was jobless for a month and I had to look for a secondary job until they reopened, and it was basically look for something that was close by. Like I'd had to look for a job at a local grocery store or a little shop. And then after a while, my bus routes got cut off. So I had to ask my mom and dad to give me a ride to and from work. And on some days where they were working late in the afternoon, I had to take the bus home, which was good for me, because the bus that I've been taking lately in the afternoons, it's close by to their house. So I would hang out there after my work day and would just hang out for a while. And also with some of my hours being cut off, I had to try to persuade my manager to give me more hours or find me some extra options to look for to get more money. That way I don't end up being homeless. And I'm just working, doing my best to work around and be safe around just be safe around everyone. Make sure they follow the procedures too, because if they don't, they're going to end up getting sick and they're going to end up somewhere else.
Yeah, that's tough. It's been a tough year for everybody. That's so tough. And this came up in another episode. I don't think people think about the bus routes very much and how that affects. Like, if you don't use a bus, I don't think people really think about how that affects people who do use the bus. And that's so difficult. And I'm sure it's been a stressful year. But, I'm glad Dirt's doing okay and that you're not homeless, because that it's just tough. And it's scary that you have to worry about that, So the pandemic's really been tough for everybody.
I will say I've gotten a few questions in other interviews where people are specifically asking how have your staff with autism been, how do they handle all the changes that you had to go through as a business? And this is the first time that I'm hearing Robby had to look for a second job and things like that. And Robby, I just want to say you've been so patient and understanding with us the whole way. Anytime we had to make a tough decision or make a cut, it was honestly Robby and some of our other employees who are on the spectrum who made sure that we were making the safest decisions for everyone, regardless of how hard it was on them personally. And some of the more difficult conversations I had to have were from our neurotypical or with our neurotypical staff. But again, it just shows that there's this perception out there that people with disabilities are harder to manage or more difficult to get along with or more difficult to employ. But time and time again, Dirt has proven that not to be the case.
That's awesome. Yeah, those stereotypes are definitely out there. I will say my sister has autism, and I would say of our family, she's probably been handling the pandemic the best. She's just really rolling with it, just kind of like, oh, well, this is what we do now, and wearing her mask and just like definitely kind of supporting us more so. So there's like that stereotype that she would have the most difficult time with it, but she's definitely been kind of supporting us with it.
Yeah, see, those are the things I keep hearing from people who are actually in relationship with or have a relationship with people who are different than them.
Yeah. And yeah, that stereotypes out there that like, oh no, like they would be really difficult during a time like this. And they're not, they're being patient. They're good employees. They're good individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
So Lauren, what are your hopes and plans for the future?
Yeah, so we have next month is our last board meeting, and in that meeting we kind of brainstorm about what we want Dirt to look like. And my goodness, in April we were having conversations around like, should we close our doors? Should we completely pivot and focus on a completely different side of what we're doing to now, amid what is looking like potentially another lockdown, but now being able to keep our doors open and think about what programs we can put in place that will have more outreach and more impact. All that to say, I have no idea what the future looks like for Dirt. Our biggest goal right now is to keep our shop open and to keep our programs not only alive and surviving, but also growing. In my heart of hearts, I would love to see Dirts open up all around the world and help other social entrepreneurs, whether you're on the spectrum or not, or have a disability or don't, open up a small business in their community that is opening up their doors on day one with people with disabilities in mind. I had written in a blog post over a year ago now, but if just 1% of all of the businesses in the United States committed to hiring just one person with a disability, there would be essentially no unemployment rate. Whereas right now, 90% of people with autism are either unemployed or underemployed. So it honestly does not take a whole lot to make a big change. We just need more employers committed to doing something so simple like changing the language in their ads.
Yeah, and it shows like just a little bit, just a little bit of work. If everyone did just a little bit of work towards this more like inclusive, it would get rid of the unemployment rate. Like
Exactly.
awesome. Robby, what do you look forward to most day to day working at DIRT? Kind of what are your hopes and plans for the future too?
What I look forward to in the future, I'm looking forward to seeing new faces on our team and possibly more places to open up and have more people on the spectrum learning and get their jobs, and hopefully they learn to live in to work independently and they can make enough to earn their own homes, and hopefully one day they'll know what it's like to work hard and keep going until they make enough to start their own retirement funds and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Both beautiful visions that you guys both have. I love it so much. All right, so those questions for both of you guys. Is there anything else we haven't touched on that you want listeners to know?
If you are in Colorado and have access to coming to our shop, we would love to serve you a cup of coffee and have a conversation with you. Otherwise, people can always support us by ordering coffee or our awesome breakfast burritos through the delivery app or donating online. We have Colorado Gives Day coming up, which is a big day for us. We haven't been able to have any of our in-person fundraisers this year, which is typically where we raise enough money to kind of pursue that next step in our vision and in our mission and to keep our programs alive and thriving. So if people are able to support through any of those ways, we would love for that to continue to happen.
Awesome. I'll make sure to link to things in the show notes for sure.
Oh, thank you.
And you guys had the tip jar, like the online tip jar this year with the pandemic, right?
Yes. So while we were closed, we had an online tip jar, which people would be able to donate to directly or virtually, and then all of those were distributed to our team during the time that they weren't able to work inside the shop.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a perfect like pivot example and kept the coffee themed. I remember seeing that and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Oh, good.
Is there anything else you want listeners to know, Robby?
Yes. To my family and friends that follow me on social media, if you're ever in Colorado or in the Littleton area, come by DIRT Coffee and say hello. I'd love to see a familiar face and offer you one of our best beverages. And yeah, I'd like to see all my friends drop by and say hello and have a good drink for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Robby, did you want to plug your video production company or freelancing?
Yeah, I've actually thought about starting my own film production company for a long time. I'm still in the process of brainstorming ideas of where and when to start it. Yeah, my dream goal is to become a movie director and make hot blockbuster movies.
That's so cool. I love that.
Robby,
awesome.
Are you available for hire for freelance videography though?
Yeah, if you reach out to me, I'll be available whenever.
All right. And how can listeners find out more about DIRT and reach both Robby for freelancing and Lauren for any questions?
Great. So a perfect way to reach DIRT is through our website, www.dirtcoffee.org. And we also have a contact us button that links directly to our emails and can come to us.
If you want to reach out to me and get more information about my videos, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's Robby Chaney, and you can check out some of my most viewed videos. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
I will get those in the show notes. Cool. Well, thank you both so much for coming on today. This has been awesome, learning more about DIRT and all the employee opportunities and the community that you guys are building with coffee, which who doesn't love coffee? I guess some people don't, but there are other drinks too, I'm sure, on the menu. So there's a drink for everybody at DIRT. And if you're in the Colorado area, please consider stopping by, or like we said, supporting DIRT for our listeners here. But yeah, thank you guys so much today for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Wasn't that an awesome conversation with Robby and Lauren? I really enjoyed hearing all about the DIRT Coffee kind of origin story, and really the community that they've started to cultivate together, which is a community of inclusion that really builds positions around the strengths of their employees, whether or not they have a disability. And having those flexibility in those positions is a great takeaway for you if you're looking to employ people with disabilities. Things to keep in mind are looking for those flexibilities, looking for those strengths, and then even starting with your job ads and your applications, and reevaluating and reviewing the language that you use. Is it accessible for all kinds of people to take the job? Another thing that we discussed that I wanted to talk about are intersections in the disability community, which was touched on briefly in our conversation. And I thought that Lauren put it really nicely, and that it's something to definitely consider. I think a lot of times when we think about people with autism, whether it's conscious or not, we're thinking of white people with autism, and to remember that there are these intersections. There are Latinx people with autism, there are autistic Black people, and that there are these intersections of different communities where they might have things affecting their lives that are not just their disabilities. So that creates a more complexity on the different issues and obstacles that they face in life, and how as employers, as a community, as people, how can we make things more accessible, especially for these people that have these intersections in their identities, so that we can continue working towards inclusion and towards just a more inclusive world, more inclusive work environment. One of my favorite points from the conversation too was that if just 1% of business owners employed one person with a disability, then the unemployment rate for people with disabilities would be non-existent. It shows how we each can make such a change, even in a world where it feels like we are not making those changes. Every one of us can work towards small movements of change that can build towards a better community and move towards bigger movements of change as well too. And I really feel like Lauren and Robby both discussed a lot of things that can give employers a lot of ideas on where to start with making employment more accessible for individuals. And Robby's story was awesome, how his position was completely built around him, and how he is now this crucial part of the DIRT Coffee community, and that he talked about working hard and finding a job that you enjoy, and how important that is to him, and how important that can be for anybody and anyone with disabilities. So thanks again to Lauren and Robby for coming on and sharing their stories and their information, their life experiences, their knowledge, and helping us make a more inclusive work environment and world. And please, like we said, if you are in the Colorado area, consider stopping by DIRT and supporting them, or consider supporting them online. Colorado Gives Day is coming up. I believe it's December 8th, and that's a day where you can give to different Colorado organizations. And what would be better than DIRT Coffee, this nonprofit that is creating job opportunities for everybody, that is creating a more inclusive environment where people are more exposed to people who are different than them in these positive experiences. Please consider supporting or giving to them. Check them out at dirtcoffee.org. Check out all the show notes for their information, and for Robby's freelancing information as well too. And yeah, definitely check them out. So to end today, we're going to end the way we always do, with the outline of the session plan of the month. I know this episode's coming out after Thanksgiving, but there's definitely things in here I think that can be done during the fall in general. First is the hello song. Then it is a movement activity to Thank You for Being a Friend by Andrew Gold. Then it's gratitude drumming / songwriting. composition. Then next would be a relaxation sensory activity with leaves that you can bring inside, crunching them and feeling them from outside, to autumn leaves, and then a goodbye song. So for a breakdown of this session plan, you can become a patron on patreon.com/navigating adulthood and IDD for $5 a month, and you can gain access to a breakdown of this session plan, as well as access to episodes 1 week early ad-free, other resources, access to our monthly intervention swaps, and join our Navigator Facebook community. So you can get all of that for $5 a month, and get a breakdown of how I would implement these interventions in more detail, along with any visuals or extra links that can help support the session plan as well too. Thank you so much for listening. Other ways to support this podcast include sharing it with somebody you think would like it, rating us on iTunes, and just continuing to tune in. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you guys next time. This podcast is by Rhythmic Roots Music Services, LLC, with content and music produced by Bonnie Haupt. Thanks for listening.